People should have higher aspirations than being the next anybody. They should be the first of themselves, not the next Steve Jobs or the next Elon Musk. Yeah, I mean, you got to find your own calling there.
Divot.
This episode is brought to you by Delve and Pulley.
Today, we're in Santa Cruz, California, joined by one of the most influential evangelists in the history of technology. Guy Kawasaki was on the original Macintosh team at Apple. He worked directly with Steve Jobs to help bring personal computing to the masses. Since then, he's written 18 books, including The Art of the Start, Enchantment, Think Remarkable, and his latest book, Everybody Has Something to Hide. He co-founded Garage Technology Ventures, and today Guy is the Chief Evangelist of Canva, $40 billion design company, democratizing creativity for millions globally. He also hosts the Remarkable People podcast, and I really hope you enjoy the conversation. Tell me about when you first started surfing and what it means to you still all these years later.
I started surfing about 11 years ago. I took it up because my daughter loved surfing so much. And we used to live over the hill in Atherton. We kind of moved here to surf, honestly. And one of the first people that I met in the surfing business was Bob Pearson. And Bob Pearson, I had no idea who he was, and come to find out, is a freaking legend. And, it's a privilege and an honor to get aboard by Bob Pearson. So from the very start, I had Bob make boards for me. And now this is sacred ground. This is, Bob's factory. And I have about 10 or so Pearson arrows. This is a lot of creativity in this room right here.
We were originally going to try to film this out on the water. And I think like a mini hurricane came through the day we were going to do it. And if you saw me out there, you might have had to save me at some point.
No, we had staff to do that. We could have got a sponsorship from GoPro, but now we have to get a sponsorship from Sony. So Sony's pocket is deeper than GoPro, so we did the right thing.
How is it that growing up in Hawaii, you didn't surf? You must have surfed.
Because I'm Japanese American and all we did was study. So, because we had to be a doctor, lawyer, or dentist.
Yeah.
My parents never said, Guy, you should be a surfer. That conversation never occurred.
All the times, walking or around the beach or driving around the island around Oahu, you never said, hey, I need to get out there.
Let me
and surf.
just say that there were better things to look at than surfboards. How's that?
So I spent a lot of time in Polynesia and around Polynesians, and Japanese Americans and Japanese Hawaiians are kind of this really interesting. The culture it's sort of part Polynesian and it's part Japanese. Like how would you describe it?
It's kind of difficult to describe. I mean, there's different levels, I would suppose, in any culture of, what is a local, right? So in Santa Cruz, if somebody has been here a week longer than you, that person is considered a local. Now, in Hawaii, you'd have to say that you had to be born in Hawaii, but truly, truly local is Hawaiian, Hawaiian DNA. I mean, their ancestors came over from Polynesia in canoes, right? But I was born in 1954 in Hawaii. I am Sansei, so I'm the third generation Japanese American. And I grew up in a very local part of Honolulu. And when I say local in that context, it means that I came from the wrong side of the street. I came from a lower middle income family. And so where I grew up, there weren't too many of your kind.
Haoles?
There were not too many haoles, and there was mostly Japanese, Chinese, Filipino, Hawaiian, Samoan. You would have been the minority there. DEI back then would be you get special rights.
Being around Polynesians, the thing you learn pretty quick is that they're very quick to love, and they'll sort of do literally anything for you. I mean, it just and I put you in this category as well. Like just this whole community. There's something about the islands that's sort of like you sort of realize that you're a very small wave in the ocean, and you're reliant on so many things around you, and also like people are going to rely on you and need you too. And I don't know, there's sort of this spirit of giving. And
well, I also think that simply because of the physical weather, that, you know, you're not isolated inside a building that's heated and you're trying to prevent any cold air from getting in. What you're trying to do is you're trying to be outside, you're trying to hang out. It's a very outward focused society. Yeah, I mean, if you go to Honolulu on any given weekend and you go to Ala Moana Park, you just see hundreds of families. And I mean, if you were to compare that to the Presidio or to, you know, Golden Gate Park, I mean, it's not even close. The ohana, which is the Hawaiian word for family.
Yeah. I used to feel like kind of almost spiritually, I needed to go to Hawaii at least once a year to just kind of like recenter myself. And there's something really special about just the I don't know, the sacredness of the land, or I don't know, maybe it's just the humidity, the flowers smell when you get off the plane.
I wouldn't necessarily go to the Ritz-Carlton to do that, but
True, fair enough. Today's a special day because today's the day that Everybody Has Something to Hide releases.
So
what is this book? Why did you write it?
I wrote this book called Everybody Has Something to Hide. The subtitle is Why and How to Use Signal. So I have come to believe that Signal is one of the most important tools in order to preserve democracy and freedom, because it is by far the most private and secure way of messaging. And I think that if you're an activist and, you know, if you are a politician, if you're a crook, I mean, you really want privacy and security in your messaging, and no other platform comes close. So I fell in love with Signal because of its privacy. But then come to find out, it is a really great piece of software. I mean, and I know a lot of software. It is very well designed.
There's so many different messaging apps. What made Signal able to kind of stand out and become this go-to tool that everyone uses for messaging?
Well, at the very basic level, there's end-to-end encryption so that your message, the text, the actual body of your message is not really readable by other people. But lots of people have end-to-end encryption now, but it's also the fact that Signal keeps as little data about the message as possible. I think, if I remember correctly, it is only when you opened the account, when you last used it, and there's one more variable. There's like 3 things they keep track of, whereas Apple and Meta, they keep track of when the message was sent, who it was sent to, how long it was it received, read. I mean, they keep a lot of data, enough. To use a good analogy, whenever you see these detective movies and there's guys in the van, with the wiretap, well, at one level, encryption means that you can tap it, but you won't understand because it's all gibberish. But in those detective movies, they also always subpoena the phone company's records, because the phone company says, a guy made a call to John at this time, it lasted this long, and they build this sequence of events using the data to prove that you just had a phone call right before the murder occurred, and it's a piece of evidence. Well, that is really not present if you use Signal. So I think it's a great piece of software, even if it didn't have the best privacy. And so I just fell in love with it. And this has been a pattern in my life that I fall in love with stuff and I start doing it. So that's true of surfing. It's true of Canva. It's true of Signal. It's true of podcasting. I don't want to give you the impression, Derek, that I had a plan for my life. I fell in love from one thing and I just moved on, every few years.
Signal's had these very public failings as well, where government officials or different people have had their Signal chats leaked. There's been a few cases where people have claimed that their Signal chats have been hacked. So is it truly secure? Is it truly safe?
Well,
or is it mostly
no.
safe?
I believe it is truly secure. It is the most secure of any of them. But it is not so secure and so great that it can compensate for stupidity. Nothing can overcome stupidity. So, I mean, to take an extreme, if you are an attorney for the Department of Justice and you start a conversation with the New York Times on Signal and you use one of Signal's features called automatic disappearance of messages. So after a certain amount of time goes by, the messages disappear. And if you believe that by setting your messages to automatically disappear when you are messaging with the New York Times, that now you're not on the record, I am sorry, but
That's your fault.
That's not Signal's fault. Yeah, it's interesting that you could have made the case that when there was a group of people who started talking about or about to bomb the Houthis, and then this other thing I'm alluding to with the New York Times and an attorney, it always is in the article that they were on a Signal secret chat, right? And I thought, oh my God, this is really going to hurt Signal, but I know the people at Signal, it really helped them.
It helped usage.
Yeah.
It drove usage.
Yeah.
It encouraged the awareness of even those events, even if negative, sort of like the old adage of any press is good press. I don't totally, in Tiger Woods' case, I don't know if that's true, but in most cases, just anyone talking about you is better than the alternative.
I wouldn't recommend it as a marketing ploy, but yeah, I mean, I think people recognize the difference between the product and the stupidity of its users.
The question is, if you're trying to hide it, should you be texting it at all?
Well, there's that question too. But I mean, otherwise, what, you're just going to keep meeting in dark alleys all the time.
Yeah. Can't talk to your college friends anymore.
No.
What number of book is this?
I think it's 18. That to me is an astounding number because when I first wrote my very first book, which is The Macintosh Way, this is back in 1987 or so, I thought, okay, guy, you wrote the one book you're ever going to write, because I wrote everything I had to say. And I have said that this is my last book 17 times now. Now, some people accuse me of saying...
being a liar.
Yeah, well, no, that too. But some people have accused me of saying that, Guy, you haven't written 18 books. You wrote one book 18 times. There's an element of truth to it.
It's the same book? That sounds kind of like a scam if we're just buying the same book over and over again.
Well,
now,
you've read several.
I've read a lot of them,
right?
Yeah. I've done the math. The amount of words you've written, they add up to more than like the Torah, the New Testament, and the Quran combined.
No,
you have
no.
It does. You've written so many things. I need to know, were you like in a monastery growing up and you were forced to write? You weren't allowed to talk. Like, where are these words coming from? What do you need to say?
Are you trying to say I'm full of shit?
I didn't say that.
Okay, but here's the irony, because a lot of people ask me about, writing a book and how to do it and why to do it and all that. And I think the motivation for most people to write a book is completely flawed. They want to write a book in order to position themselves as a visionary, position themselves as a thought leader. They want the book to be a means to an end, the end being consulting or speeches or, making that person famous. And I think that is a completely wrong motivation to write a book. I think the purest and best and maybe only good motivation for writing a book is because you have something to say. And if you don't have something to say, don't write a book. I think that a book is the end in itself. it is a piece of art. Like this surfboard is a piece of art,
Yes.
right? And if you can consider that you would write a book, even if it didn't sell because it's a piece of art, then you should write the book. But if you're saying that, I'm writing this book merely as a means to an end so I get more consulting contracts, your motivation is flawed. Your motivation is corrupt, and it ain't gonna work.
I love when Rick Rubin talks about this, and he talks about how a lot of times what the mistakes that people make in doing music in their second album is their first album, they make music for themselves. And then the second album, they start making music for what they think other people want.
Yeah.
And then it ends up being terrible or nowhere near what the first version was. And I think in the creative projects that I've done, I feel the same way. It's like when the really good ones I'm building for myself, and hopefully other people lean into it.
I would make the case that that is a very good description for the genesis of great tech companies. That Wozniak was making a computer for himself, right? That I hesitate to use the word great in the same sentence with Meta and Facebook, but I would make the case that Zuckerberg was creating Facebook to help him get dates at Harvard, right? I mean, the genesis of a company where people are making things for themselves, and thank God it's more than just myself that likes it. I bet when you interview Bob Pearson and you say, well, Bob, who was your first customer? Bob's first customer was probably Bob, right? He wasn't driven by some market forecast for the growth of the surfing industry.
Right.
He wanted to make the best and coolest boards for him and his friends.
And people recognize that. People see that authenticity, right? Then you've probably seen this, whether it was with Canva or certainly working close to Steve Jobs, and Steve Wozniak is one of the earliest marketing leaders there. Like every time Steve Jobs spoke, from the videos I watch, it's like, it's sort of, you're getting the person that is there, and this person knows a lot and really cares about what they're doing. And
I really think that the genesis of great organizations is that they wanted to build a product for themselves. Well, the irony of that is completely contrary to what you would say most management gurus will tell you, right? Most management gurus will tell you you have to assess the size of the market. Well, the market for Wozniak's first computer was one, right? Wozniak. Maybe with expansion, you could say it was the 25 members of the Homebrew Computing Club.
Sure.
Okay, so that's 25 people. But, I don't think he ever envisioned a time when they were selling millions of Macintoshes. It just worked out that way.
When you think about working with Steve Jobs all these decades later, what is sort of the lasting thing that you think about that experience, and the sort of, what made him a different leader than other people you've seen?
Listen, working for Steve Jobs was an honor and a privilege, but not a pleasure. Right? 2 out of 3 ain't bad, right? I consider myself very fortunate to work for him. Everybody that I know who worked for him would agree with me, but it was never easy. And I dare say it's not easy working for Bob Pearson too. Is Bob still here? No, Bob's not in the room, so I can say that.
Not easy working for anyone that's obsessed with their craft.
This is the science of orifices. So I've been working in Silicon Valley for about 4 decades, so I am an expert in orifices. Not in the gastrointestinal sense, but in the sense of personality. So fundamentally, there are 2 kinds of orifices. One orifice is ego-driven. This company is for the glorification of me. I am the founder, I am the CEO. Every one of you peons, you work for the glorification of me. That is the ego-driven orifice. There is also the mission-driven orifice, which is Steve Jobs. So the mission-driven orifice is, I am on a quest to make the finest computer. You are either helping or you're not helping. And if you're not helping, I'm going to ignore you or run you over. I would make the case that that is the kind of orifice you want to work for, because that kind of orifice is on a mission. And the mission is not the glorification of Steve Jobs. The mission is to make a great computer or a great car or a great surfboard or great book or great podcast. That kind of mission-driven orifice is okay. Now, we could also have another discussion that, is it necessary to be an orifice to succeed? And I have been thinking about this for decades. Like, the fact that you're an orifice help you succeed, or the fact that you succeeded means people put up with your orificeness? This is a deep philosophical question that I have not yet answered. And I think that maybe both are true. Being an orifice, a mission-driven orifice, helps you cut through a lot of the bull. But once you achieve success, people will put up with your orificeness because of your accomplishment. On the other hand, I will tell you that Melanie Perkins of Canva is not an orifice, and she has been very successful. So you don't need to be an orifice.
You kind of need to be yourself and whatever that is, and then pursue it authentically.
Well, I might even debate that, because there's this whole thing about people should be open and transparent, right? I mean, open and transparency, these are highly held qualities. But you have to ask the question, right? Or if you're open and you're honest, but what if you are an orifice?
Should you be open about that?
Yeah, I mean, you to use a sexual metaphor, you might not want to see some people naked. Right? I mean, there are people you don't want to see, right? So those people should have a facade.
Yeah, and maybe in this analogy, I don't know where I'm going to go with this, but they may be good at one thing, and another part of that you don't ever want to see.
Yeah.
But if you can just sort of, or the company or the mission can tap into the obsessive positive.
The way to control that is to realize the impact of the halo effect. And the halo effect seems to be that, if you're a great actor, I should trust you with my advice or your advice about vaccination. So if Tom Cruise says, don't get vaccinated, wow, he's such a great actor, I'm going to take his advice about vaccination for my kid. That's the halo effect, right? So if someone is a great surfer and they tell you how to be a great parent, okay, the halo effect. I would ask people to be skeptical about the halo effect. Just because someone can throw 50 touchdowns a year doesn't mean you should believe them about
who to vote for,
wealth, or, yeah, he's the greatest quarterback, I'm going to invest in his crypto. What does being a great quarterback have to do with crypto? Let me think about this. So I'm just asking people to be skeptical about the halo effect. It's not necessarily true. For that matter, okay, Guy is good at this. Why would he be good at something like that? I'm okay with that skepticism.
Do you think, having worked closely with him, do you think Steve Jobs' accomplishments are exaggerated or embellished or over celebrated?
No, I think he deserves every bit of the glory and attention he got. Some people might make the case that, he went to Xerox PARC and he, got the idea or stole the idea for graphical user interface in that. And I would say that there's some truth to that, but I would also say that it is a particular talent to know what to steal. Don't underestimate the value of knowing what to steal, because you can break into somebody's house and you can steal the toilet paper, or you can break into somebody's house and steal the Rolex watch. You need some intelligence about what to steal. So I hope that I steal the right things too.
Isn't he the guy that said great artists steal?
Yes. And it was him or Picasso, one of those two people.
Well, he definitely he was an opportunist, and he was able to see opportunities better than a lot of people. I mean, he took Pixar, which was this really cool technology, but not commercialized,
Yeah.
and found a way. It went from George Lucas deciding to sell it and abandon it, basically, right? And he took it, and it became this really his biggest financial win.
But you could also make the case that what Steve Jobs could do better than most people is he could empower you to do the best work of your life. I feel that way. I feel that.
Do you still feel that now that those few years you spent at Apple, you did the best work of your life with them?
I think so.
Yeah?
I've been declining ever since. I guide Kawasaki. I'm living proof that if you do one thing right in your life, you can coast for a long time. So I truly believe that he set the parameters up. And I actually feel bad for people because lots of people work for bosses who are not smart enough to appreciate good work. And if there's anything worse than working for a lousy boss who doesn't let you achieve stuff, it's working for a boss where you achieve stuff and they don't have the intelligence and taste to appreciate what you've done. And you can say a lot of bad things about Steve Jobs, but he knew good when he saw it. And I mean, to this day, if you look at a lot of tech products, you have to scratch your head and say, like, what the hell were they thinking? Like, how can this be such a piece of crap? It's because your boss probably is from private equity and has an MBA and has never used a computer or a surfboard.
Or never talked to customers.
Or never talked. What a concept, huh? So Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs' idea of market research was the left hemisphere of his brain talk to the right hemisphere of his brain. But I would say that, maybe Steve Jobs is the only person that can pull that off. Elon Musk is probably close to that, but then Elon Musk has, let's say, other issues. So yeah.
He also, I mean, Steve Jobs did have a couple of different companies and projects. Elon has been able, I think maybe just, I mean, there's lots of reasons, but he seems to work more hours in the day than almost anybody else. And he's able to allocate time and resources in a way to, like, he spends 2 hours here and 2 hours there.
Yeah.
And he's got 4 or 5 or 6 of these companies that are all sort of multi-billion dollar,
Yeah, I would say that you could easily make the case that Elon Musk is more of a visionary than Steve Jobs was, because Steve Jobs, his focus was computers, phones, tablets, those kinds of things. Whereas Elon, he's like from Mars to Starlink to cars to chips in your head to making tunnels under Las Vegas. Elon Musk is all over the map. Now, you could also make the case that one of the strengths of both of these people is that he was able to hire people because he enabled them to do such great work, that he could hire great people that did great work, and it became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, they're so different too. And it's from the Neuralink stuff, the chips in your brain, to the robots, to the cars. It's his depth of engineering ability to cross over into these very complicated different things. I mean, I guess some of the first principles are probably similar, but it's sort of insane I mean, very few people can be great at one thing, and to be sort of the expert, or maybe, like you say, to be able to hire the very best people. Maybe one of his biggest talents is just recruiting. He's just an unbelievable recruiter.
If you think Steve Jobs is hard to understand, I would say Elon Musk is 1,000 times harder to understand.
I mean, all these people, anybody that's at the top of their field is complicated, aren't they? I mean, these aren't, I don't know, like everything's complicated about them. The way that they think is complex. The way that they live their personal life is complex and equally wild and crazy sometimes. But, Howard Hughes, like, he was one of the greatest innovators of the last 100 years. And, like, he was by all accounts, like, a crazy person. I mean, he was,
Well, I have come to accept the fact that some people have a very different operating system. And I, as a mere mortal, I cannot understand how Steve Jobs or Elon Musk operates because I'm a mortal. And in my mind, they are, I don't know if they're immortal, but they're way beyond me. And, I am comfortable enough in my skin to understand that, yeah, guy, you're not one of those people.
Is it, you think they were just innately like that, or is it something that gets cultivated over time? Could you, after meeting Steve Jobs early in your career and learning from him and watching him, could you have said, I'm going to become some version of that and create some version of this company?
Well, first of all, I think that is a fool's goal to be the next Steve Jobs.
Why is that?
Well, it could end you up in prison for 12 years. But besides that, people have a very difficult time separating correlation from causation. And so they look at things from the outside and they say, well, Steve Jobs had a black mock turtleneck. I'm going to buy a black mock turtleneck. He wore Levi's 505s. I bought 505s. He bought New Balance running shoes. I'll buy New Balance running shoes. He buys black Mercedes. I'm going to buy a black Mercedes. He doesn't license his Mercedes. I'm not going to license my Mercedes. I'm going to drive in a carpool lane. Steve Jobs used to drive in a carpool lane. I'm going to park in a handicapped slot. I'm going to park in a handicapped slot just like Steve Jobs. And next thing you know, I'm going to be the next Steve Jobs. No, you're not. You're just going to be soul in a black mock turtleneck. Orifice. You're just going to be an orifice in 501 or 505 jeans, New Balance, black mock turtleneck, and a black Mercedes, driving in the carpool lane, parking in the handicap slot. You ain't going to be Steve Jobs. The probability of that is extremely low. The probability clearly is higher. You're going to be in jail.
So if I can't be the next Steve Jobs, then who should I be?
Well, I mean, in a sense, people should have higher aspirations than being the next anybody. They should be the first of themselves, not the next Steve Jobs or the next Elon Musk. Yeah, I mean, you got to find your own calling there. Well, I have this podcast called Remarkable People, and I give you a very tactical piece of advice that I learned from Mark Manson, who wrote a book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving something I cannot mention on your show. And he told me that, Guy, you will truly know that you have found what you love and you have found your calling when it involves a sandwich that you love. And when people on the outside are telling you, Derek, why are you a podcaster? It's such a sandwich. You got to prep for the interview. You got to edit the interview. You got to record the interview. You got to market it. And like so much goes on in a podcast. Why do you do it? Well, if you say, I love the prep, I love the interview, I love the editing, I love all that, well, then you know you truly found something, right? So it's the way I feel about writing. I love the editing stage of writing. I have gone over my manuscript for this Signal book hundreds of times. And I love that. And that is a sandwich that very few people can relate to.
Yeah, I mean, I love learning, and I have dreamed many times of standing at a surfboard with you. And so this, I created this. No, but
it's good. My day is complete. I know I'm in Derek's dreams.
That's right. Who is this Howley dreaming about me in Palo Alto? What is going on? I don't want to stop learning, and I think when I do these episodes, sometimes I wonder if it's just for me, and that's fine. Maybe it's for my kids. Maybe it's for a few people that want to participate in it. But it's the whole creative experience, I think, is really rewarding. It's incredible being in this space. I would have never been in this space had you not suggested that we come and film here. And and look, I've been learning from you for a long time. You wrote this book, The Art of the Start, and I was at Electronic Arts as a product manager in the first job of my career, and I still remember vividly I found out you were speaking at Stanford about this book, and I left the office at like 2:30, which at the time seemed like I was going to get fired because there's no such thing as people not being in their desk the whole day. And I snuck up into the room, and it was packed, and I stood at the back, and I listened to you speak about how to the sort of things you learn about building a company. And I learned it then, and as I've read your volumes of the Torah and the Guy Kawasaki New Testament, I continue to learn things, and that's I always want to learn. I always want to be growth mindset.
Wow. I had no idea I had such an impact on your life.
That's why I dream about you. And that's why sometimes you rub my head for good luck.
No, you sure? I didn't write Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh,
right?
shoot. I thought that's not you?
I didn't write Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, yeah. I meant to get the other guy, Kawasaki. Gosh,
you got the wrong person.
Gosh, dang it. Well,
it happens all the time.
I was going to tell you, your financial advice has been
yeah,
to me over the years.
I'm poor dad. Seriously, Derek, this happens all the time. People come up to me, like total strangers. I'm in a restaurant. They say, I just read your book. I was lost. I didn't know what to do with my life. I read your book and it changed my life. And I said, well, which one of my 18 books change your life? And they say, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I go, man. I look around like, did somebody put you up to this?
What do you say? Do you just accept it and say, well, I'm so glad it had an impact on you, or do you correct them?
I just tell them we all look alike and we sound alike too. So yeah, it's not your fault.
I started this company called Bevy. It's a software company. And there's this other company named Bevy, and it's like a drink, to get carbonated drinks in your office. Everyone has these machines. One time I walk into Salesforce, they'd just become a customer of ours. And the guy in the lobby looks at my business card and he's like, "You're the founder of Bevy?" And I was like really early in the startup. And I was like so proud. I was like, this, as you do, like whenever somebody knows independently, and it's not someone you're related to, it's not a friend of a friend, it's just some random person in the wild knows independently about what you're working on. It is like, even still, it's the greatest feeling, but early, it's like the most incredible validation because you've created this baby and now people know what this baby is. And I was like, I am the founder of Bev. And he said, man, we love your product. I was like, wow, I'm just like feeling emotion. He's like, every day at about 11,
I know where this is
I
going.
go to the back office and I go get a drink, and I love those drinks. And we just want to thank you. And I just stood there. I said, no, thank you. I'll tell the team.
It
means a lot.
You should have called your company Liquid Death, and then you would be
no one would ever mess it up.
Okay, we're gonna. I have a story to top that story, if you like.
Please.
This is about 20 years ago. I had a 911. I was at a stop sign in Menlo Park in my 911. And once you buy a Porsche, you truly become an orifice. Everybody driving a Porsche is an orifice. Okay, take that as a given. So this is my orifice stage. I'm sitting in my Porsche in Menlo Park. I look over there. There's this car with 4 teenage girls in it. And they're giggling, they're laughing, they're making eye contact. So I'm sitting there like the orifice I was. I've arrived because of my writing, my speaking, my hot startup, my work at Apple. I've truly arrived. Even teenage girls know who I am. So the girl in the front seat, she goes like that, to roll down the window. Obviously, she doesn't own a Porsche because you press a button to put the window down. That's besides the point. So she says, roll down the window. I roll down the window, press the button. She sticks out her. She goes, are you Jackie Chan? And I'm like, ah. And Derek, ever since that day, you got to have motivation and goals in life, right? So ever since that day, one of my goals is that someday Jackie Chan is in Shanghai or Hong Kong or wherever he lives, and he's driving his Maybach or his Bentley or his Rolls Royce or his S-Class or whatever he drives. pulls up to a stoplight, car full of girls. Girl asks Jackie, put down your window. Jackie puts down his window, and the girl leans out and says, "Are you Guy Kawasaki?" That's my goal in life.
You're sort of famous too for being like people bumping into you in coffee shops or like in breakfast, diners and things like that. Like, what is it about the creative process for you, sort of being in public and coming up with ideas? A lot of people like want to be in a cold, dark, quiet room.
Believe me, I have access to a lot of private places, that great internet access, completely quiet, like what most people would fantasize for to work. And I work in 2 or 3 coffee shops almost all the time. There's cat and cloud over here. There's cat and cloud over there. I work in coffee shops all the time. It's something about, I just pick up the energy. I pick up the pace. I don't like to be in a dark hole by myself. I do most of my writing in coffee shops. I used to do a lot of my writing when I fly. People used to ask me, "Oh, where did you write this book?" I say, United 3A. It's a lot better than 35J. But anyway, so I like the energy in coffee shops. I really do. In a book, one of my books, I listed every coffee shop I worked in. It was like 25 coffee shops.
Are you able to work? Like, do you have hours where you work where no one interrupts you, or do you like the interruption? Do you learn from the people sitting around you? Or are you listening?
I get interrupted all the time. I do believe that, I don't want people to say, "I met Guy Kawasaki. He's an orifice." That is one of my greatest fears in life. Now, I happen to be deaf now, so it's not as easy to have these conversations. But I was brought up with the concept of noblesse oblige, which says basically that if you're fortunate, you owe society something. So, I have segregated my life that first I was learning, and then I was earning. And I'm in the stage of my life where I am returning. So now I'm in the return stage. So if you are watching this video and you see me in a coffee shop, do not hesitate to come up and say hello. I might not be able to hear you and understand you, but I'm going to smile at you. But for God's sake, do not ask me about Rich Dad and Poor Dad.
As you mentioned your hearing, what have you learned from the loss of your hearing?
Oh, yeah. So I lost my hearing about 5 years ago. And of course, you might wonder, like, why did you lose it? And my theory about why I lost my hearing is because I listened to so many pitches in Silicon Valley that it's an occupational hazard. Yeah. So that's why. So, I have come to embrace deafness in a lot of different ways. So first of all, when you're surfing and you don't know what you're doing like me, you often drop in on people where you shouldn't have gone for a wave because it's their wave and they yell at you. Being deaf is very convenient. I didn't even hear you. I didn't know you were there. So I have plausible deniability on dropping in on people. I also think that, first of all, if you had to lose a sense, I would make the case that deafness is not so bad. I would much rather be deaf than blind, right? Second thing, I would also much rather have deafness than, say, pancreatic cancer. Nobody ever died from being deaf. I also prefer being deaf to being dumb, because with deafness, I have a cochlear implant. Next week, I'm getting another cochlear implant. A cochlear implant takes you from being deaf to having really lousy hearing. But there is no equivalent for stupidity for cochlear implant. You cannot get an implant to fix your stupidity. You can get an implant to fix your deafness. So I'm ahead there too. And what I have learned is that everybody is dealing with something. Some people have pancreatic cancer. Some people are single, income mothers or something. Some people are abused. I mean, everybody has something. And if till the day I die, the worst thing that happens to me is being deaf, I would,
Lived a
God,
pretty lucky life.
yeah, God, give me that paper. I'll sign that paper right now. That's just the way it is. And it is, I'm telling you, it is an advantage to be a deaf surfer because people yell at you, you don't hear that. People want to talk to you in the water.
Also, to be a creative in a coffee shop, it's not the worst thing either.
I hate to burst your bubble, but one of the ironies of being deaf is that when you get an implant or a hearing aid, the way these things work is they make what sounds even louder. And so with a cochlear implant, you pick up everything. When you go to a restaurant, it's practically impossible. You hear the clinking and the clanking, you hear other people eating and taking orders. So the irony is that when you are deaf and you get some kind of way to address your deafness, you truly learn how noisy the world is.
Mm.
When you're driving a car and you have a cochlear implant, it is very noisy. And that is one of the disadvantages. But, like I said, there are a lot. I would rather be deaf than dumb. Just saying. I'm just saying.
Outside of family, who's the person you most admire?
Probably Jane Goodall.
You spent time with her.
Yeah, I think she was the most remarkable person that I met. It's truly a great loss to the world. The last time I saw Jane Goodall was her 90th birthday party, and it was in the Salesforce Tower.
Mm.
And she looked, a little bit tired. So I said, Jane, I have this extra house. You can stay in the house. No one's going to ask you for a photo. No one's going to ask you for a selfie. No one's going to ask you for an autograph. Just take it easy for a while. Get off the grid, Jane. And Jane said to me, Guy, I cannot do that. There is too much to do. This 91-year-old woman is telling Guy, yeah, I got too much to do. I cannot rest.
Mm.
Which, meanwhile, 25-year-old guys and gals are saying, I need work-life balance. I don't think so.
Yeah, it was inspiring too. You do see people accomplish these incredible things, and then sometimes they just go to the beach and they disappear. And like you, no, you've continued to innovate and to write and to do things, but it is really unique and inspiring how she into so late in her entire life was still pushing.
Jane Goodall, to the very end of her life, she would be on the road 300 days a year. 300 days a year. And
on planes and
yeah, and you know what? Guess what? She probably was not flying in a private Gulfstream, right?
Right.
And the nature of her travel, I don't know, Derek, when I travel, I catch a car to the airport, I go first class, I land, another car picks me up, I go to the hotel, I eat, I go to sleep, I wake up, I make a 1-hour speech, I get in the limo, I go back to the airport, I get back to first class, I get back in the limo, and I'm back home. That's my day. I'm only on deck for 1 hour, 2 hours if I have to have a, face-to-face meeting with the VIPs. So let's say on any given business trip.
This is when you're doing a speaking engagement, right? This is when you're out speaking, getting paid to go talk to a room full of people or executives. Yeah. Okay.
So on a road trip, Guy is really on deck 2 hours.
Yeah.
Well, the nature of Jane Goodall's travel was she's meeting people from the time she wakes up to the time she's meeting with students and donors and activists and politicians and, corporate leaders. She was on deck all day long, 300 days a year. I could not have done that.
Yeah. One of the really interesting things too about your career in the last few years is you were the evangelist for Apple, but you've also had kind of some similar marketing roles for different companies. One of those is Canva, which is this Australian startup kind of taking on design, democratizing design. And I remember when you first started working with that company, and it seemed honestly a little bit odd that you were such a well-known person, and you're repping this company that honestly I hadn't really heard of, from Australia. And
In Perth. You never heard of Perth?
is it in Perth? Oh, wow. Okay.
Well, it's in
That's
Sydney
literally
now.
like the furthest place in the world from here. So, but then like this company turns out to be this massive juggernaut company with as you said, an amazing CEO, an amazing team. And I wonder, that small, short engagement of a couple of years or however long it was, uh, you know, with the amount of time and energy and effort you put into that versus all the other things you did, like financially, like hitting the right startup at the right time in the right role with all of these things you've done and all of the build up to that, like how does that compare financially of sort of the impact to you of picking the right company at the right time with the right people versus writing 18 books or speaking everywhere all over the world or all these really hard things that you've done?
I have been with Canva for 10 years now. And without getting tacky, let's just say that it has been extremely lucrative. I mean, not billionaire lucrative. I have made a mental decision to never be worth more than $1 billion because I have seen what it does to people's brains. I am not at risk yet, by far. I'm not. I don't want to get billionaire's disease and start believing that the reason I live is to ensure low rates of long-term capital gains and crypto brothers are successful. That is not my goal in life. Okay, so Canva really found me because I was using with my person who was helping me with social media. She was using Canva to make graphics for Twitter. So we believe that every tweet should have a picture. So she was using Canva to make the picture. So one day they sent me an @ message on Twitter and I happened to respond to it. And I went to, her name is Peg Fitzpatrick. I went to Peg. I said, Peg, isn't Canva the thing you use to make our graphics? She goes, yeah. I said, do you like Canva? He goes, yeah. Should I help Canva? Yeah, you should help them. That was my due diligence.
Wow.
And that was the whole process. And let's just say that, in a biblical story, this is the fish and bread that a lot of fishes and a lot of bread came out of that. There's two ways of looking at Canva. Maybe your way is, Guy, you help this unknown company and break into the big time. I guess you could make that logic, but I also believe that Canva was going to make it with or without me. It is that good a product. So Derek, the short summation of this summary is called Guy's Golden Touch. Now, you might think I'm an orifice, so I'm going to tell you that Guy's Golden Touch is whatever Guy touches turns to gold. That's not true. I'm not an orifice. Guy's Golden Touch is whatever is gold, Guy touches. And that is a skill. You got to know what's gold to touch. Having said that, I will tell you that I touched gold at the start of my career with Macintosh. I touched gold at the end of my career with Canva. In the middle, it was a lot of lead and a lot of copper and a lot of tin and a lot of bolt. But the way it works in Silicon Valley is you throw a lot of shit up against the wall. You go up to the wall. You paint the bullseye. I hit the bullseye. You can always hit the bullseye if you paint the bullseye after you see where your arrow got stuck. And so when people ask me, what have you done in your life? I said, well, you may have heard of some of the companies I've been associated with. Apple, Canva, Wikipedia, Mercedes. That's all, Not like Bevy, the drink company.
You're like, so like the anti-Midas, or is it like, the opposite of Midas? Is it like the Guy touch or something? It's to go find gold and to touch it?
Okay, so there's some lessons of this. So number one is, if you or somebody who's really doing the work says something is good, you should listen to that person. So Peg Fitzpatrick was really doing the work. She really knew what was necessary to make great graphics. I didn't know. She knew. So thank you, God, that I listened to Peg Fitzpatrick, right? Because if I was an orifice and thought I knew everything, I might have said, why would I associate myself with Canva? There's Adobe Photoshop. Oh, well, that would have been a very costly mistake. So lesson number 1 is listen to the people who really do the work. Lesson number 2 is, I think, contrary to what many people consider, you look for a proven team in a proven market with a proven business model. That's the venture capital formula for success. Canva was an unproven team in an unproven market with an unproven business model. Besides that, it hit all the requirements. So some of that is, you got to take shots. You got to just go with your gut. You got to take a lot of shots. Like the Disney movie, you got to drill a lot of holes.
What's the hardest thing you've ever accomplished?
Surfing.
Really?
Surfing is the hardest thing that I have ever
worked for Steve Jobs.
You could
wrote all these books. Surfing.
Now, people who know and have seen me surf might debate that, Guy, you have not yet accomplished surfing. But let's say that for someone who took up surfing at 60, I am the best 10-year-old surfer out there. Okay. I mean, everybody has to define a niche. I am the best person who started surfing at 60 who is deaf on an arrow in the world. I own that niche. I absolutely own that niche.
That's why we wanted to speak with you today.
Oh, it wasn't because of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
No, it was originally, but then it became the surfing.
See, even you have progressed.
On that note, what's your best advice for overcoming hard things?
If I were to say, what has been the secret to your success, Guy, I would say I can just outwork most people. I love to work. I love to work. I mean, most people might take up surfing at 61, surf 1 or 2 times a year. Not Guy. Guy is like surfing every day. Guy is training off the water to, I do a lot of things to surf. And that is kind of the story of my life, that I have, you call up Angela Duckworth and you say, does Guy define grit? I got grit, and I don't consider myself particularly smart. I'm not visionary, blah, blah, blah. But man, I got freaking amazing amount of grit. Grit is my secret sauce.
Yeah, hard work.
Yeah.
Almost always wins.
And, it's not just a masochistic grit. I love to work.
Yeah.
I don't have to work now. I love to work.
What's the over-under on you getting to above 25 books written? Is that likely? Is that unlikely?
I'm 71 years old. I write a book every 3 years. I would have to write 7 more books. It's 21. It ain't going to happen.
Okay.
I'm not going to live to 100.
Well, you could, but you'd be writing into your 90s.
Well, but 20 years from now, I just go to a LLM and say, write this book.
Yeah. What's the thing that you've accomplished that you're most proud of?
My family, by far, my family. I love my family. I live for my family. I don't give about anything except hanging 10.
How do you measure your life?
I would say that I measure my life and what I want to be remembered as, and what I want on my gravestone. Not that I'm going to be put in the ground. My plan, I told my kids, my plan is I die, you cremate me, you take my dust, you bring it to this factory, you have Bob mix it in the resin and make you boards. So I will be in the resin on a board that you're surfing, and I'll be with you surfing for the rest of time. That's the plan. So maybe I should sell some of my dust.
I was going to say, you could, if you had your dust, you could also have Bob hold it on the surfboard while he hang tens, and that could be like you doing a hang 10. But you wouldn't be here to know, so
No.
you'd feel unfulfilled, but we don't know you did it.
Wait, no, what was the question? Oh, what I want to be remembered for. So, what I want to be remembered for, or the mantra of my life, is a lot of people write mission statements, and I think it's total bull because they try to cover all the bases, right? So, like, as a company, you have this mission statement: is we endeavor to provide, optimal shareholder equity return while enabling our employees to self-actualize their goals while exceeding the expectations of our customers and killing as few whales and dolphins as possible. That's the mission of our company, which is total bullshit. You're trying to cover your employees, your shareholders, the dolphins and customers, right? So I have two words that I want that define my life, which is empower people. I want to empower people with my writing, my speaking, my podcasting, ideally my surfing. You can't have everything. So I just want to empower people. I want people to say, Guy empowered me with his writing, his speaking, his investing, his advising, maybe even his surfing. That's how I want to be remembered. Not about crypto, not about long-term capital gains.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Divot. On next week's episode.
Get started with pursuing your dreams, Obviously, that's not my idea or a big idea, but of any time in human history is now, the best time, to be building whatever you have in mind and become an entrepreneur. By far the single best time.